The perfect life crumbles. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the bridal suite as Emma Rodriguez stood before the full-length mirror, her hands trembling as she adjusted the delicate lace veil. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The ivory wedding gown hugged her figure perfectly, thousands of tiny pearls sewn into the fabric catching the light like captured stars. Outside the window, guests were already gathering in the garden of the Maxwell estate, their laughter drifting up through the spring air. Emma's best friend Sophia finished fastening the last button on the back of the dress, her fingers working with practiced care. "You look absolutely beautiful," Sophia whispered, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Marcus won't know what hit him when he sees you walking down that aisle." Marcus Sterling. Just thinking his name made Emma's heart flutter the way it had for the past 3 years. They had met at a charity gala where Emma was working as an event coordinator, barely scraping by after putting herself through college. Marcus, the heir to Sterling Industries, had walked into her life like a dream made flesh. Tall, handsome, with eyes the color of stormy seas and a smile that could melt ice. He had pursued her relentlessly, refusing to take no for an answer until she finally agreed to dinner. Their romance had been a whirlwind. Private jets to Paris for weekend getaways, spontaneous midnight picnics under the stars, declarations of love written in the sky by airplane banners. Marcus had promised her the world, and Emma, who had grown up in a small apartment with a single mother working 3 jobs, had believed every word. He was her prince, her savior, her future. "Are you nervous?" Sophia asked, squeezing Emma's hand gently. The concern in her voice was unmistakable. Emma nodded, unable to form words past the lump in her throat. It wasn't just wedding day jitters. Something had felt off for the past few weeks. Marcus had been distant, taking phone calls in other rooms, spending long nights at the office. When she'd mentioned it, he'd laughed it off, blaming the stress of finalizing a major business deal. She had forced herself to believe him, pushing down the nagging doubts that kept her awake at night. ## a wedding day betrayal. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in 30 minutes. Emma's mother arrived, tears already streaming down her weathered face as she embraced her daughter. "My beautiful girl," she sobbed. "I'm so proud of you. You've worked so hard for everything you have." Those words struck Emma's heart like a hammer. She had worked hard. Scholarships, student loans, 60-hour work weeks to build her event planning business from nothing. Marcus had offered to pay off all her debts when they got engaged, but Emma had refused. She wanted to stand on her own feet, to prove she was more than just a poor girl who got lucky by catching a rich man's eye. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Sophia opened it to reveal one of the wedding planners, a young woman named Rachel whose face was pale with anxiety. "Miss Rodriguez, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who insists on speaking with you. She says it's urgent." Emma frowned, glancing at the clock. 25 minutes until she was supposed to walk down the aisle. "Can't it wait? Tell whoever it is that I'll be happy to speak with them after the ceremony." Rachel shifted uncomfortably, wringing her hands. "She says you'll want to hear what she has to say before you marry Mr. Sterling. Her name is Victoria Chun." The name meant nothing to Emma, but something in Rachel's expression made her blood run cold. Against Sophia's protests, Emma followed Rachel down the marble hallway of the estate, her heels clicking against the polished floor with each step. They entered a small sitting room where a woman stood with her back to them, staring out at the garden where white chairs were arranged in perfect rows. Victoria Chun turned slowly, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. The woman was stunning, with long dark hair cascading over her shoulders and wearing an elegant black dress that seemed wildly inappropriate for a wedding. But it was her eyes that stopped Emma cold. They were filled with a mixture of pain, anger, and something that looked disturbingly like pity. "Emma Rodriguez," Victoria said, her voice steady despite the emotion flickering across her face. "I'm sorry to meet you like this. I really am. But you deserve to know the truth before you make the biggest mistake of your life." Emma's hands clenched the fabric of her wedding gown. "I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing, but today is my wedding day. Whatever this is about can wait. ## the discovery of deception." Victoria reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a manila envelope, holding it out to Emma with a hand that barely trembled. "I'm Marcus Sterling's wife." The words hung in the air like poison gas, suffocating and impossible to escape. Emma stared at the envelope, unable to make her hands move to take it. That's impossible. You're lying. Marcus would never. We've been married for 5 years, Victoria interrupted, her voice cracking slightly. We have a 3-year-old son named Christopher. Marcus told me he was at a business conference this weekend. I only found out about this wedding because I saw a charge on our shared credit card for the venue deposit. Emma's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the nearest chair. Sophia, who had followed despite being told to wait outside, rushed to her side. This is insane. Show us proof, or get out of here before we call security. Victoria opened the envelope and spread photographs across the coffee table. Wedding pictures of her and Marcus, smiling and cutting a cake. Family photos with a beautiful little boy with Marcus's storm gray eyes. Bank statements showing joint accounts. A marriage certificate dated 5 years prior. And finally text messages between Marcus and Victoria from just 2 days ago, where he told her he loved her and couldn't wait to come home to his 2 favorite people in the world. Emma felt as though she was watching the scene unfold from outside her own body. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not on her wedding day. Not from the man who had whispered promises of forever into her ear every night before she fell asleep. Why? Emma finally managed to whisper, her voice barely audible. Why are you telling me this now? Why not earlier? Victoria's composure cracked, and tears began streaming down her face. Because I only found out about you yesterday. I've been going through Marcus's things trying to figure out where all our money has been going. He told me his company was struggling, that we needed to cut back on expenses. Meanwhile, he's been financing your entire relationship, planning a second wedding, buying you a house. She laughed bitterly. A house bigger than the one we live in. Sophia grabbed Emma's hand, squeezing so hard it hurt. We need to confront him. Right now. But Emma was already standing, a strange calm settling over her despite the storm raging inside her chest. No. I need to see for myself. I need to hear it from him. She walked out of the sitting room like a woman possessed, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a ghost. Guests watched in confusion as the bride marched through the hallways, her face pale but determined. She found Marcus in the groom's room, laughing with his best man while adjusting his tie in the mirror. He looked so handsome in his tailored tuxedo, so perfect, so utterly like the man she thought she knew. Emma! Marcus's smile faltered when he saw her expression. You're not supposed to see me before the wedding. It's bad luck. Tell me about Victoria, Emma said, her voice eerily calm. Tell me about your wife. Tell me about your son. ## vanishing into the night. The color drained from Marcus's face faster than water circling a drain. His best man, Richard, took one look at the situation and quickly excused himself, practically running from the room. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a fish drowning in air. I can explain, he finally managed, his hands reaching out toward her. Emma, please, it's not what you think. Really? Emma's voice rose, months of suppressed doubts and ignored warning signs finally erupting. Then what is it, Marcus? Please explain to me how you can be married with a child while proposing to another woman. Please explain how every word you've said to me for 3 years has been a lie. Marcus ran his hands through his perfectly styled hair, panic replacing his usual confident demeanor. Victoria and our marriage has been over for years. We only stay together for Christopher. I was going to tell you. I was going to divorce her right after the wedding. This was supposed to be a fresh start for us. A fresh start built on deception and betrayal, Emma said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded when everything inside her was shattering. Did you ever love me, Marcus? Or was I just another toy for the rich boy who has everything? Don't say that, Marcus pleaded, moving closer. I love you, Emma. More than I've ever loved anyone. Victoria was an arranged marriage, something our families pressured us into. You're the one I chose. You're the one I want. Emma took a step back, holding up her hand to stop him from coming any closer. The wedding ring on her finger, the engagement ring with the massive diamond that she'd been so proud of, suddenly felt like a chain around her neck. You want me? You don't even know me. If you knew me at all, you'd know that I would never accept being the other woman. You'd know that my mother raised me to value honesty and integrity above everything else. She yanked the engagement ring off her finger and threw it at his feet, the diamond catching the light one last time before rolling under the dresser. The wedding is off. Tell the guests whatever you want. Tell them I got cold feet. Tell them I'm crazy. I don't care anymore. Emma, wait. Marcus grabbed her arm, desperation replacing the panic in his eyes. Where will you go? Everything you have is because of me. Your apartment, your car, your business line of credit. I can make your life very difficult if you walk away. For a moment, Emma saw the real Marcus Sterling behind the charming mask. The entitled rich man who viewed people as possessions, who thought money could buy loyalty and love. The man who would threaten and manipulate to get what he wanted. How had she been so blind? Then make it difficult, Emma said, pulling her arm free with strength she didn't know she possessed. I'd rather have nothing and my dignity than everything built on lies. She walked out of the room, out of the estate, past the confused guests and the beautiful flower arrangements and the expensive champagne waiting to toast a marriage that would never happen. She walked in her wedding dress down the long driveway, her veil trailing behind her like a surrender flag, until she reached the main road. Sophia caught up with her, breathless and carrying Emma's purse and phone. Where are you going? I don't know, Emma admitted, her calm facade finally cracking as tears began to flow. Anywhere but here. ## 5 years of silence. That night, Emma Rodriguez disappeared from the life she had known. She drained her personal bank account before Marcus could freeze it, packed 2 suitcases with her most essential belongings, and bought a one-way bus ticket to Seattle. No friends, no family, no connections to her old life. She changed her phone number, deleted all her social media accounts, and stopped responding to the hundreds of messages from people demanding to know what had happened. Her mother was the hardest goodbye. Emma sent a single letter explaining everything, promising to stay in touch through a P.O. box, begging her to understand why she needed to vanish completely. The pain of leaving her mother behind nearly broke her, but Emma knew that staying would break her even more. Seattle was cold and rainy and nothing like the sun-soaked California she'd left behind. Emma got a job waiting tables at a small diner, living in a studio apartment barely bigger than a closet. At night, she cried herself to sleep, mourning not just the loss of Marcus but the loss of the future she had dreamed of. The children she would never have with him. The life of comfort and security that had been a mirage. But slowly, painfully, Emma began to rebuild. She took classes at a community college, learning business management and investment strategies. She saved every penny she could, working double shifts until her feet ached and her eyes burned with exhaustion. She read books about entrepreneurship, studied successful women who had built empires from nothing, absorbed every lesson she could about turning pain into power. A year after fleeing her wedding, Emma started a small consulting business helping restaurants improve their operations. 2 years after that, she had expanded into event management for corporate clients. By year 4, she was running a successful firm with 20 employees and clients across the Pacific Northwest. Emma Rodriguez had become Emma Ross, a name she'd legally changed to sever the last tie to her past. She dated occasionally but never seriously. The scars Marcus had left were deep, teaching her to trust slowly and question everything. She built walls around her heart so high that even she sometimes forgot what warmth felt like. 5 years after walking away from her wedding in that white dress, Emma stood in her corner office overlooking downtown Seattle. Her company, Phoenix Rising Consulting, was about to announce its biggest contract yet, a year-long partnership with Sterling Industries' West Coast division. She had known this day might come eventually, known that success in her field would inevitably lead her back into Marcus Sterling's orbit. But she hadn't expected the email that arrived that morning from Sterling Industries' CEO, Marcus himself, requesting a personal meeting to discuss the partnership. The email was professional, impersonal, giving no indication that they had any history beyond a standard business relationship. Had he forgotten her? Did he even know she was Emma Ross, formerly Emma Rodriguez, the woman who had humiliated him by running away from their wedding? Emma stared at the email for a long time, her finger hovering over the delete button. She could refuse the meeting, assign someone else from her team to handle the Sterling Industries account, continue living her peaceful life without confronting the ghosts of her past. But something had changed in Emma over the past 5 years. She was no longer the naive girl who believed in fairy tales and princes. She was a woman who had built something real from the ashes of betrayal. And she was no longer afraid of Marcus Sterling or the power he represented. She hit reply and typed a single sentence. "I'll be there next Tuesday at 2 p.m. As she pressed send, Emma caught her reflection in the window glass. The woman staring back was stronger, sharper, more confident than the bride who had fled in tears 5 years ago. Whatever Marcus wanted, whatever game he was playing, she was ready. Phoenix Rising wasn't just the name of her company. It was a promise she had made to herself in the darkest moments. She had been burned by love and lies, reduced to ashes by betrayal. But like the mythical bird, she had risen from those ashes. And now she was returning to face the fire. End of part 1. Part 2. The return of fire. The unexpected reunion. The Sterling Industries tower stretched 70 floors into the Seattle skyline, a monument of glass and steel that reflected the gray clouds gathering overhead. Emma stood on the sidewalk outside, adjusting the collar of her charcoal business suit and taking deep breaths to calm her racing heart. 5 years of preparation had led to this moment. 5 years of building her strength, her company, her armor against the man who had shattered her trust. Her assistant, Michael, stood beside her holding a leather portfolio containing their presentation materials. "Are you sure you want to do this yourself?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I can handle the meeting. You don't have to see him." Emma shook her head, her jaw set with determination. "No. This is something I need to do." She had spent countless nights imagining this reunion, rehearsing what she would say, how she would stand, the expression she would wear. Professional, cool, untouchable. She would show Marcus Sterling that she was no longer the broken girl he had deceived. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt both endless and too short. Emma watched the numbers climb higher, each floor marking another second closer to confronting her past. When the doors finally slid open, she stepped into a reception area that screamed wealth and power. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the city and Puget Sound beyond. "Ms. Ross," the receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. "Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Please follow me." They walked down a hallway lined with photographs documenting Sterling Industries' history. Emma forced herself not to look at the images, knowing that somewhere among them would be pictures of Marcus, maybe even pictures from before she'd met him, pictures of the life he'd hidden from her. The receptionist opened double doors to reveal a massive corner office. And there he was. Marcus Sterling stood with his back to them, hands clasped behind him as he gazed out at the cityscape. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit, his dark hair now touched with distinguished gray at the temples. 5 years had added maturity to his features, making him even more handsome than Emma remembered. "Ms. Ross from Phoenix Rising Consulting," the receptionist announced before quietly retreating and closing the doors. Marcus turned slowly, and Emma watched the recognition dawn in his storm gray eyes. His composed expression cracked for just a moment, shock and something else, guilt perhaps or regret, flashing across his face before he regained control. "Emma," he breathed, her name escaping his lips like a prayer or a curse. "My God, it's really you." Emma remained perfectly still, channeling every ounce of professionalism she'd cultivated over 5 years. "Mr. Sterling, I believe you wanted to discuss the consulting contract." Her voice was ice, betraying none of the emotions churning inside her. Marcus moved closer, his eyes scanning her face as though trying to memorize every detail. "I had no idea. When I saw the name Emma Ross, I never imagined. You changed your name." "I changed a lot of things," Emma replied coolly, setting her portfolio on the conference table. "Shall we begin the presentation? Or would you prefer to reschedule when you're able to focus on business?" Building a new empire. Marcus seemed to collect himself, though his hands trembled slightly as he gestured toward the conference table. "Please sit. And I apologize, this is just unexpected. I've thought about you so many times over the years, wondered where you went, if you were okay." Emma sat with practiced grace, crossing her legs and opening her portfolio with steady hands despite the storm inside her. I'm sure you were devastated, she said, unable to keep the sharp edge from her voice. Almost as devastated as I was when I discovered my fiancé had a wife and child. The barb hit its target. Marcus flinched, sinking into the chair across from her. Emma, I know I can never apologize enough for what I did to you. If I could go back and change everything. But you can't, Emma interrupted, her eyes meeting his without flinching. So let's focus on what we can control, which is this business relationship. Phoenix Rising Consulting has an impressive track record of improving operational efficiency for major corporations. Our proposal outlines a comprehensive strategy for your West Coast division. For the next hour, Emma delivered her presentation with flawless precision. She discussed workflow optimization, cost reduction strategies, employee engagement initiatives, and projected revenue increases. Michael provided supporting data and fielded questions about implementation timelines. Emma barely looked at Marcus, directing her attention instead to the materials before her and the stunning view beyond the windows. But she felt his eyes on her constantly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. The professional facade she'd built was holding, but barely. Every cell in her body remembered him, remembered the way he used to hold her, the promises he'd whispered, the future they'd planned together. The betrayal felt as fresh as if it had happened yesterday instead of 5 years ago. When the presentation concluded, Marcus sat back in his chair, silent for a long moment. It's an impressive proposal, he said finally. But I think we both know that's not why I asked for this meeting. Emma's carefully constructed wall showed its first crack. I don't know what you mean. You requested a meeting to discuss our services. I requested a meeting because when I saw your company's name on the proposal, something made me look deeper, Marcus admitted. I found a photo of you at a business conference. You'd cut your hair, changed your style, but I recognized your eyes. Those eyes that haunted my dreams for 5 years. ## secrets begin to surface. Emma stood abruptly, gathering her materials. This meeting is over. If Sterling Industries wants to work with Phoenix Rising Consulting, we can proceed through proper business channels. But I won't sit here and listen to you romanticize a relationship built on lies. Please, Marcus said, rising as well. Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain what really happened, and then if you want to walk away, I'll never bother you again. Against her better judgment, Emma found herself pausing at the door. The part of her that still carried questions, still carried pain, needed answers even if she hated herself for it. 5 minutes. That's all. Marcus took a deep breath, his hands gripping the back of his chair as though needing support. Everything I told you that day was true. Victoria and I did have an arranged marriage, something our families pushed us into for business reasons. We were never in love, never really even friends. We stayed together for Christopher, trying to give him a stable home. Emma's voice dripped with sarcasm. How noble of you. And I suppose that justified lying to me for 3 years. No, Marcus said firmly. Nothing justified what I did to you. I was a coward. I was afraid that if I told you the truth, you'd leave, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. You were the first real thing in my life, the first person who saw me as Marcus instead of as the Sterling heir. So you made me the other woman, Emma shot back. You turned me into exactly the kind of person I swore I'd never be. Do you have any idea what that did to me? How it felt to realize that every moment we shared was contaminated by your deception. Marcus's composure finally cracked, tears gathering in his eyes. I know I can never make it right. I know I destroyed something precious. But I need you to know that I did love you, Emma. I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. Love doesn't destroy people, Emma said quietly, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Love doesn't lie and manipulate and trap someone in a web of deception. What you felt for me wasn't love, Marcus. It was possession. And I refused to be owned by anyone ever again. She turned to leave, but Marcus's next words stopped her cold. I'm divorced now. Have been for 4 years. Victoria and I finally ended things 6 months after you left. Turns out our son was better off with honest divorced parents than unhappy married ones. Emma turned slowly, studying his face for signs of deception. And you're telling me this because? Because I never stopped hoping I'd see you again, Marcus admitted. Because I've spent 5 years becoming someone worthy of a second chance. Because when I saw your name on that proposal, it felt like fate giving me an opportunity to make things right. ## the plan takes shape. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think after everything you did, after all the pain you caused, that I'd just forgive you? That we'd pick up where we left off like nothing happened? No, Marcus said quickly. I'm not that delusional. But maybe we could start over. Build something new, something honest this time. I'm not the same man who hurt you, Emma. I've been through therapy, rebuilt my relationship with my son, learned what actually matters in life. Emma stared at him, seeing both the man who had broken her and this new version who seemed genuinely remorseful. A dangerous idea began forming in her mind, one born from 5 years of suppressed anger and hurt. What if she let Marcus think there was a chance? What if she used his hope against him the way he'd used her trust? I need time to think, she said finally. This is all too much to process. Relief flooded Marcus's face. Of course. Take all the time you need. And Emma? Thank you for listening. That's more than I deserved. As Emma left the building, Michael hurried to catch up with her. So? How did it go? Did you tell him off? Emma's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Better. I'm going to make him pay for what he did. Not with anger or dramatic confrontations, but with the one thing that matters most to men like Marcus Sterling. His pride and his empire. Over the following weeks, Emma carefully cultivated a relationship with Marcus that walked the line between professional and personal. She accepted his dinner invitations but kept conversations focused on business. She laughed at his jokes but maintained emotional distance. She let him see glimpses of the woman he'd fallen in love with while keeping her true feelings locked away. Marcus fell for it completely, his hope growing with each meeting. He sent flowers to her office, not the extravagant arrangements from before, but simple bouquets with handwritten notes. He shared stories about his son Christopher, now 8 years old and passionate about marine biology. He opened up about his therapy sessions, his journey to understanding how his entitled upbringing had warped his view of relationships. Emma listened to it all with apparent sympathy while secretly compiling information. Through their business relationship, she gained access to Sterling Industries' internal operations, discovering inefficiencies and vulnerabilities that could be exploited. She learned about Marcus's business rivals, companies that would pay handsomely for insider information. She identified key employees who were unhappy with their positions, potential allies in her plan. But as the weeks turned into months, Emma found herself facing an unexpected complication. Doubt. Marcus seemed genuinely changed, genuinely remorseful. He treated her with respect, never pushing for more than she was willing to give. He'd established a college fund for the children of Phoenix Rising consulting employees, a gesture he claimed was inspired by Emma's story of struggling to pay for school. You're getting soft, Sophia warned during one of their weekly video calls. Emma's best friend had been the only person from her old life who'd remained in contact, honoring Emma's need for privacy while providing unwavering support. I'm not getting soft, Emma insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. I'm being strategic. You can't destroy someone without first understanding exactly where they're vulnerable. Or maybe you're remembering why you fell for him in the first place, Sophia suggested gently. Emma, I was there. I saw how much he hurt you. But I also saw how much you loved him. Just be careful that your revenge doesn't end up destroying you instead. ## old feelings, new dangers. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening 6 months after their first reunion. Marcus had invited Emma to his home for dinner, claiming he wanted her professional opinion on a renovation project. She'd accepted, curious to see how he lived now, whether traces of Victoria still lingered in his space. Marcus's house surprised her. Instead of the massive mansion she'd expected, it was a comfortable 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood. The interior was warm and lived in, with Christopher's drawings on the refrigerator and baseball equipment by the door. This was the home of a father, not a wealthy businessman trying to impress. Christopher's with his mother this week, Marcus explained as he poured wine in the kitchen. Shared custody has been good for all of us. He's happier, more well-adjusted than he ever was before. Emma wandered through the living room, noting the photographs on the mantel. Marcus and Christopher at a baseball game. Christopher holding up a fish he'd caught. A family photo that included Victoria. All of them smiling genuinely. No trace of the forced happiness from the pictures Victoria had shown Emma 5 years ago. You kept photos of Victoria, Emma observed. Marcus joined her, studying the images. She's Christopher's mother. We're not enemies, just two people who realized we worked better as friends and co-parents than as spouses. She's actually remarried now to a man she truly loves. She's happier than I ever saw her when we were together. They ate dinner on the back patio, watching rain fall on the garden that Marcus admitted he maintained himself. I find it therapeutic, he explained. Getting my hands dirty, nurturing something and watching it grow. My therapist says it's symbolic, but I think I just like the tomatoes. Emma laughed. A genuine laugh that surprised them both. The evening felt comfortable, natural. Nothing like the tense business meetings or the forced politeness of their early interactions. Marcus told stories about Christopher's latest obsession with dolphins, and Emma found herself sharing memories of her mother, who'd recently retired from nursing. I'd like to meet her someday, Marcus said softly. Your mother. I'd like to apologize to her too, for the pain I caused her daughter. Emma's guard went up immediately. Marcus, we're not there. We may never be there. I know, he said quickly. I'm not trying to push. I just want you to know that I understand the full scope of what I destroyed. It wasn't just our relationship. It was your trust in people, your sense of security, your faith in love itself. The vulnerability in his voice was devastating. Emma wanted to hate him, needed to hate him to fuel her revenge. But sitting here in the rain with wine and honest conversation, she found her carefully constructed anger wavering. Why did you really bring me here tonight? Emma asked. What do you want from me, Marcus? Marcus set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. I want the chance to prove that people can change. That mistakes, even terrible ones, don't have to define us forever. I want to show you that the man who hurt you is gone, replaced by someone who understands the value of honesty and trust. And if I can't give you that chance? Emma challenged. If the wound is too deep to heal? Then I accept that, Marcus said, though pain flickered in his eyes. But Emma, I see the way you look at me sometimes. Like you're remembering something good beneath all the hurt. I see how you laugh at my jokes despite trying not to. I see you, the real you, beyond the professional mask you wear. Emma stood abruptly, her heart pounding. You see what you want to see. You always have. Maybe, Marcus admitted, standing as well. Or maybe you're scared that what you feel isn't just anger and hurt. Maybe you're scared that despite everything, part of you still feels something for me. The accusation hung in the air between them, charged with possibility and danger. Emma wanted to deny it, to throw his words back in his face and walk away with her revenge plan intact. But she couldn't speak past the truth lodging in her throat. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his familiar cologne, see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm asking if you'd be willing to start completely fresh. Let me court you properly this time. No lies, no secrets, no hidden wives. You hurt me, Emma whispered, tears threatening despite her determination not to cry. You destroyed me, Marcus. Do you understand that? I was planning to marry you, have children with you, build a life with you. And in a single moment, all of that was revealed as a lie. I know, Marcus said, his own voice thick with emotion. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. But Emma, I also know that you're the strongest person I've ever met. You didn't just survive what I did to you. You built an empire from the ashes. You became someone extraordinary. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. The question isn't whether I deserve a second chance. I don't. The question is whether you want to spend the rest of your life carrying this anger, or whether you're willing to risk being hurt again for the possibility of something real. Emma stood frozen, her careful plans crumbling around her. Revenge had seemed so simple from a distance. Use Marcus's feelings against him, destroy his business, make him feel the kind of loss she'd felt. But now, standing in his home, seeing the man he claimed to have become, she found herself questioning everything. I need to go, she said, pulling away from his touch. This is too much too fast. Marcus nodded, disappointment clear on his face but not protesting. Of course. Thank you for coming tonight. And Emma? Whatever you decide, I want you to know that meeting you, even with how things ended, was the best thing that ever happened to me. You taught me what love should be, even if I was too broken to give it to you properly. As Emma drove home through the rain, her mind raced with conflicting emotions. She'd spent 5 years building walls, planning revenge, convincing herself that Marcus Sterling was irredeemable. But tonight had shown her something she hadn't expected. The possibility that people could change, that genuine remorse could lead to genuine transformation. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. How did it go? Did you execute phase 1 of the plan? Emma stared at the message for a long moment before responding. I think I might be in trouble. I think I might still have feelings for him. The response came back immediately. Oh honey, that's not trouble. That's terrifying. Emma couldn't disagree. Revenge was simple, clean, and satisfying. Love was messy, complicated, and dangerous. And she was standing at the crossroads, having to choose which path to follow. The only question was whether her heart was brave enough or foolish enough to risk burning a second time. End of part 2. Part 3, Love and Vengeance Collide. The truth revealed. 3 months had passed since that rainy dinner at Marcus's house, and Emma found herself living in a state of constant contradiction. By day, she maintained her professional relationship with Sterling Industries, her consulting firm now deeply integrated into their West Coast operations. By night, she accepted Marcus's invitations to dinner, museums, concerts, slowly lowering the walls she built so carefully. Marcus kept his promise, treating their relationship like a fresh start. He never pressured her for physical intimacy beyond holding hands or a brief kiss goodnight. He shared everything about his life, his business challenges, his fears about being a good father, his ongoing therapy sessions. The transparency was both healing and terrifying. But Emma still hadn't told Marcus about her original revenge plan. She'd abandoned it, or so she told herself, yet kept the evidence she'd gathered locked in a safe in her apartment. Insurance, she rationalized. Protection in case Marcus reverted to the man who'd betrayed her. Sophia had flown to Seattle for the weekend, insisting they needed face-to-face time. They sat in Emma's apartment, a bottle of wine between them, as Emma tried to explain the complicated mess her life had become. So let me get this straight, Sophia said, refilling their glasses. You've spent 6 months pretending to slowly forgive him while actually slowly forgiving him for real. But you haven't told him that you initially planned to destroy his company? When you say it like that, it sounds bad, Emma muttered. Because it is bad, babe. You're building a relationship on the same foundation of lies that destroyed your last one. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. If Marcus really has changed, if you really want this to work, you need to tell him the truth. Emma's stomach churned with anxiety. What if he can't forgive me? What if knowing I plan to hurt him destroys whatever trust we've rebuilt? Then maybe it wasn't meant to be, Sophia replied. But Emma, you deserve a relationship built on honesty. Both of you do. The lies, no matter how well-intentioned, will eventually poison everything. That night, Emma lay awake staring at her ceiling, Sophia's words echoing in her mind. She'd convinced herself that keeping her original intentions secret was protecting their new relationship. But really, she was protecting herself. She was keeping an escape route open, a way to hurt Marcus if he hurt her first. The decision crystallized the following morning. Emma sent Marcus a text. We need to talk. Can you come to my place tonight? His response came immediately. Of course. Is everything okay? Emma stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Finally she typed. It will be. I hope. Confronting the past. Marcus arrived at 7 o'clock, concern evident in his expression. Emma had spent the afternoon cleaning her apartment obsessively, as though organizing her physical space could somehow organize the chaos in her heart. She'd laid out all the evidence she'd gathered on her dining table. Documents about Sterling Industries' vulnerabilities, lists of disgruntled employees, contact information for Marcus's competitors. What's all this? Marcus asked, picking up a folder with his company's logo. Emma took a deep breath, her hands trembling. Before I say anything, I need you to listen to everything. Don't interrupt, don't react, just listen. And then when I'm done, you can decide if you want to walk away. Marcus set down the folder, his expression shifting from concern to wariness. Emma, you're scaring me. Good, Emma said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. You should be scared. Because what I'm about to tell you might destroy everything we've rebuilt. She told him everything. How she'd recognized his name on the Sterling Industries contract and had initially planned to refuse it, but then saw an opportunity for revenge. How she'd spent the first 3 months of their renewed relationship gathering information to use against him. How she'd identified every weakness in his business, every vulnerability she could exploit. How she'd contacted his competitors, dangled the promise of insider information without quite committing to anything. I wanted to hurt you, Emma admitted, tears streaming down her face. I wanted you to feel the same devastation I felt when Victoria showed me those photos. I wanted to destroy something precious to you, the way you destroyed something precious to me. Marcus had remained silent throughout her confession, his face unreadable. Now he moved to the table, sorting through the evidence methodically. Emma watched him review months of her meticulous planning, her stomach twisting with each passing second. This is incredibly detailed, Marcus said finally, his voice neutral. You could have destroyed Sterling Industries with this information. Why didn't you? Because somewhere along the way I stopped wanting revenge, Emma whispered. I started seeing you, the real you, not the monster I'd built up in my mind. I started believing that maybe people could change, that maybe what we had could be rebuilt into something better. Marcus set down the last folder and turned to face her. And now? What do you want now? Emma met his eyes, forcing herself not to look away despite the shame burning through her. I want honesty. I want a relationship where neither of us is hiding anything, where we're not carrying secrets that could explode at any moment. I want to know if you can forgive me for plotting against you, the same way you're asking me to forgive you for lying to me. ## the final showdown. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Finally Marcus spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Do you know what the worst part of this is? It's not that you planned to hurt me. God knows I deserved that and worse. The worst part is that you've been carrying this alone, letting it eat away at you while trying to build something real with me. Emma blinked in surprise. You're not angry? Oh, I'm furious, Marcus said, but his voice held more pain than rage. But not at you. I'm angry at myself for creating a situation where you felt this was necessary. I'm angry that my actions 5 years ago were so damaging that your first instinct when seeing me again was to plan revenge. He moved closer, taking her hands in his. Emma, I hurt you in the worst possible way. If you'd actually gone through with destroying my company, it would have been karmic justice. The fact that you didn't, that you chose to see me as a person capable of change instead of just a target for your anger, that's not weakness. That's strength. I feel like I'm becoming the kind of person I swore I'd never be, Emma confessed. Someone who keeps secrets, who manipulates situations, who lies even if it's by omission. Then let's make a deal, Marcus proposed. Right here, right now we start completely fresh. No more secrets, no more half-truths. No more protecting ourselves by keeping escape routes open. We either trust each other fully or we walk away, because anything in between will slowly poison us. Emma studied his face, searching for signs of deception or manipulation, but all she saw was genuine emotion, vulnerability that matched her own. What about all of this? She gestured to the evidence spread across her table. What are you going to do with this information? Marcus gathered up all the papers, folders, and documents, carrying them to her fireplace. May I? Emma nodded, watching as he fed the evidence into the flames 1 page at a time. There. Gone. Burned away like the past we're choosing to leave behind. As the last page curled into ash, Emma felt something inside her release. The anger she'd carried for 5 years, the need for revenge that had driven her, the protective walls she'd built around her heart, all of it seemed to go up in smoke with those documents. I love you, Marcus said suddenly. I know it's too soon to say it given everything we've been through, but I need you to know. I love the woman you've become, Not despite the revenge you planned, but because you had the strength to abandon it. I love your integrity, your courage, your refusal to become bitter despite having every reason to be. Emma's breath caught in her throat. I don't know if I can say it back yet. The wounds are still too fresh. I don't need you to say it, Marcus assured her. I just needed to say it honestly, with no agenda, no manipulation, no strings attached. Whether you love me or not doesn't change how I feel. Whether you choose me or not doesn't change that meeting you was the catalyst for me becoming someone worthy of being chosen. The doorbell rang suddenly, shattering the intimate moment. Emma frowned, not expecting anyone. Through the peephole, she saw a woman she didn't recognize, elegant and poised, holding an envelope. Opening the door, Emma found herself face to face with Victoria Chun, Marcus's ex-wife. The last time they'd met had been on Emma's wedding day, when Victoria had shattered her world with photographs and marriage certificates. I'm sorry to interrupt, Victoria said, her voice calm but purposeful. But there's something you both need to know. ## redemption through fire. Victoria entered the apartment, acknowledging Marcus with a slight nod. I didn't come to cause trouble. I came to give Emma something I should have given her 5 years ago, the complete truth. She handed Emma the envelope, which contained a thick stack of papers. Legal documents, medical records, correspondence between lawyers. Emma's hand shook as she sorted through them, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. When I showed you those photos on your wedding day, Victoria began, I told you Marcus and I had been married for 5 years and had a son together. That was true. What I didn't tell you was that Marcus had filed for divorce 3 months before you met him. Our marriage had been over for years, but the legal process was complicated by custody arrangements and business entanglements. Emma's head snapped up. What are you saying? Victoria glanced at Marcus, who looked equally shocked. I'm saying that when Marcus met you, he believed he would be divorced within weeks. The lawyer handling our case had assured him the final papers were just a formality. But then my father, who had business interests tied to the Sterling family, intervened. He used his connections to delay the proceedings, hoping Marcus and I would reconcile. Marcus sank onto the couch, his face pale. I didn't know. Victoria, I had no idea your father was interfering. I know, Victoria said softly. I didn't find out until recently, when my father passed away. I was going through his papers and found correspondence with the judge handling our divorce. He'd bribed officials, pressured lawyers, done everything possible to prevent our separation. Emma's mind reeled as she processed this new information. But Marcus lied to me. He let me plan a wedding when he was still legally married. He did, Victoria agreed. And that was wrong, no question. But Emma, I've spent 5 years feeling guilty about my role in your pain. I was angry that day, angry at Marcus for moving on while I was still trapped in a marriage neither of us wanted. I showed you those photos to hurt him, and you became collateral damage. She pulled out another document, this one dated just days after Emma's failed wedding. These are the final divorce papers. They were signed 1 week after you left. If my father hadn't interfered, if the legal system had functioned properly, Marcus would have been divorced before he proposed to you. You wouldn't have been the other woman because there wouldn't have been another woman. Marcus looked up at Victoria with something like wonder. Why are you telling us this now? After all this time? Because I'm getting remarried next month, Victoria explained. To a man who loves me completely, honestly, without reservation. And preparing for this wedding made me think about yours, Emma. About how I destroyed your happiness to ease my own pain. You deserve to know the full truth. Not just the version I gave you when I was angry and hurting. Emma sat down heavily, her entire understanding of the past 5 years shifting beneath her feet. So Marcus was trying to divorce you when he met me? He was already in the process, Victoria confirmed. He should have told you immediately, should have been upfront about the complications. But the basic fact remains. He wasn't choosing me over you. He'd already chosen to leave me before you entered the picture. The three of them sat in silence, processing the weight of these revelations. Finally Marcus spoke, his voice hoarse. This doesn't excuse what I did. I still lied by omission. I still let Emma believe we could get married when the legal situation was more complicated than I admitted. No, it doesn't excuse it, Victoria agreed. But it contextualizes it. You weren't a serial cheater or a manipulative liar. You were a man in a complicated situation who made poor choices about transparency. She stood, preparing to leave. Emma, I can't tell you what to do with this information, but I can tell you that holding on to anger, letting it define your life, only hurts you. I know because I've been there. When I finally let go of my bitterness toward Marcus, when I forgave both him and myself for our failed marriage, I found peace. And then I found love. After Victoria left, Emma and Marcus sat in stunned silence. The evidence of Emma's revenge plan had burned away, and now the foundation of her anger had been shaken by unexpected revelations. I spent 5 years hating you, Emma finally said, building my entire identity around being the woman who was strong enough to walk away, who wouldn't be destroyed by betrayal. And now I don't know what to think. Marcus moved beside her, close but not touching. Think this. We were both victims of circumstances beyond our control. We both made mistakes. We both caused each other pain. And we both have a choice about what we do next. Which is, we can let the past define us, Marcus said softly. We can let my poor choices and your planned revenge and Victoria's anger and her father's manipulation create a story where we're always broken. Or we can write a new story, one where imperfect people learned from their mistakes and found their way back to each other. #a new beginning. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotion and adjustment. Emma and Marcus entered couples therapy, working with a professional to navigate the complicated terrain of their relationship. They learned tools for communication, practiced radical honesty even when it was uncomfortable, and slowly rebuilt trust that had been shattered and partially restored. Christopher, Marcus's son, met Emma for the first time at a casual lunch. The 8-year-old was shy initially but warmed up when Emma expressed genuine interest in his passion for marine life. Do you know that dolphins sleep with half their brain at a time? He explained enthusiastically. So they can keep swimming and breathing while they rest. That's amazing, Emma responded, charmed by his intelligence and enthusiasm. Maybe you'll be a marine biologist someday. That's what I want to be, Christopher confirmed. Dad says I can do anything if I work hard enough. Watching Marcus interact with his son, Emma saw another dimension of the man she once planned to marry. He was patient, engaged, and genuinely devoted to Christopher's well-being. Victoria's new fiancé joined them for dessert, and the 4 adults shared easy conversation while Christopher regaled them with facts about various sea creatures. This is what healthy co-parenting looks like, Victoria's fiancé James commented. Both biological parents putting their child first, plus new partners who support rather than complicate the dynamic.